Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the challenges facing the construction industry in Kenya. I'm very excited about this webinar. I hope we will learning along the process. Sorry again for starting 4 minutes late. Our sincere apology. I just want to straight away go into the webinar so that we don't let people waiting for more. My first question will be with you, Mr. Nashon Okowa. I just want to ask you, what's the impact of COVID-19 on the construction industry in Kenya?
Look, the impact of COVID-19 in Kenya mirrors what other countries have experienced. It's not bespoke to us. We have experienced the challenges of imports, definitely, of challenges of the economy. I think our economy has shrunk from last 2020, 2021. It's gone down because of economic growth. A lot of developers were on the edge because of the effect of COVID. So definitely the challenges that other jurisdictions have faced in terms of sector growth has affected us. COVID has affected the construction industry growth. During the 2 or so years that we were on lockdowns and stuff like that, when we couldn't import a lot of our stuff, a lot of construction stuff is imported from out of Kenya. So the growth of the sector has dwindled a little bit. We are hoping to rebound probably this year. Let's see how it goes if the cost of materials favor us. So the growth of the sector has dwindled, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. John, do you want to say something about it, or?
I think Nathan has pretty much covered it, but I think maybe one of the key things has been also the industry has also been quite resilient. So as much as we may have seen the impacts that were there, the industry was quite resilient in the sense that we were able to continue still with construction, and some of the major projects that were ongoing. Government projects definitely were hit quite big with a lot of cutting back, but then for the private sector, we did see quite a lot of projects which were critical, and depending on where they were at that particular time of their phase, then we were able to continue with delivering on some of those projects. And I guess that's some of the learning lessons, and even from where you sit as ABiQ, in terms of just the adaptation that is there within the construction industry. Historically, it's been an industry which has been known to be very slow globally in terms of adapting to change. But I think COVID could probably be, over and above the Industrial Revolution, COVID could probably be one of the key milestones or impacts that has happened within the industry to actually force it to then be able to transition. And then tech and such things have been then adopted to try and see how to deliver projects better and more efficiently.
Thank you very much. I think the success of the construction industry is very important, especially, when you think about affordable housing for, middle to lower income households. And besides COVID, I think, in my own opinion, that maybe the slow adoption of technology, in the sector can also be a problem. I don't know if you have something to say about it. Could the slow adoption of technology in the construction sector be also one of the problems, facing the Kenyan construction industry sector, so that they don't build as they should at the affordable cost, especially for middle-income households? Simon, you want to say something about it?
Thank you very much. Maybe I can also contribute to the first question and simply add that in addition to what has been said by my colleagues, we also saw quite a bit of disruptions and delays on ongoing projects, especially for COVID-19 related events. And this was significantly from governmental orders, lockdowns, and disruption of global supply chains. I think something that one of my colleagues has also mentioned, surprisingly, is that we saw the industry took a more pragmatic, collaborative, and amicable approach in resolving some of these COVID-related disputes and claims, so that quite a bit of them may not have ended up into fully fledged disputes, which I think was a positive thing. I think another thing that we also saw, especially with the local market, is that there were some tax reliefs that were granted by the government Key amongst them is that VAT was reduced from 14% to 16%. And what that meant is that the cost of materials, especially locally sourced materials went down, which I think was a positive aspect of COVID-19. That was only prevalent, or rather, that was only in the year 2020. So those tax reliefs were removed, or rather were taken away by the government as at 1st January 2021. On the second question on how whether technology may impact the affordability.
The slow adoption of technology, yes.
Yeah, on technology. I think, yes, it may be one of the reasons why the cost of construction is high. I think that with high adoption of technology, we are going to see production efficiencies by contractors, financiers, and suppliers. And such production efficiencies would definitely be passed down to consumers, which will be cost savings. So we expect to see an improvement on the cost, or rather a reduction on the cost of construction and affordability of housing by middle and low income households. Maybe I can also speak a little bit on some of the factors, some other factors that are contributing to high cost of construction. On the supply side, and my colleagues can elaborate much more. On the supply side, we have seen the cost of land in this country is usually very high as compared to other countries within the region. There are various factors why that is the case. There are cultural aspects. There's also very high demand for land ownership in the country, which has especially gone up over the last 20 or thereabout years. Of course, what we are discussing, the high cost of construction. And then we have also seen quite a bit, the cost of financing has also been very high. And then on the demand side for home buyers, they are very high. We have been experiencing very high mortgage rates. And especially low-income households have faced financial exclusion as far as accessing affordable financial products that would enable them to own homes, or rather get better housing. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nashon, do you have something to say about technology, embracing technology? You know, what can Kenya construction industry do to embrace technological innovation? Because we know that if they do, it will be good to bring costs down, to build more affordable housing, you know, for middle to lower income household, you know, because at the end of the day, that's where, you know, the country should be hitting, should be going. Should Kenya, you know, make engineering, construction, civil engineering program free? I don't know which kind of solution, you know, as an expert within that sector of activity.
Thank you very much. I think first of all, let me say that construction industry globally, I think it said it's only second to hunting in terms of digital adoption. So we are at the rock bottom of the sectors in the world. We're only second to hunting, which is, and you can imagine being only better than hunting in terms of digital adoption globally. But then when you marry it to our built environment here, you realize, I always say we are about 15, 20 years behind the digital adoption. So yes, we are lagging behind in terms of solutions that are 21st century solutions. We still run projects on what 1,700 methods of project management of projects. We are on Gantt charts and MS projects, which are very old tools in terms of executing projects. So indeed, the challenges of the 21st century, which are immense and which are evolving, they change every time, will require us to be on technology. I don't think it's a choice. I don't think it's a choice. And I think over the last couple of years, there's been a clarion call in the built environment here to try on board as many people as possible on digital transformation. It is the way to go. It's the only way we are going to execute projects successfully within the constraints of time, cost, or quality, and other constraints that we have, including limited resources. It's the only way we're going to execute projects successfully. And I think you can see the effects, the 1 ton cost and time overruns that we have, for example, in Kenya, is an indication of how we are executing our projects. I always say it is criminal. It is criminal to finish projects on time in this country nowadays. I mean, how dare you? That's where we are, and technology is the reason why we are lagging behind in the suite of projects.
Why do you say it's criminal? I mean, Chinese are known to finish a project on time, you know, at an affordable cost compared to others, and that's what, you know, make some people want to give business to Chinese.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I say it's criminal because of how we do it. When we begin projects, we are almost reluctant and always say, like, it will delay. I mean, if you check the Deloitte Africa Construction Trend Report, it indicated that 87% of our projects have time overruns. I mean, it's nearly 100%. So when I begin a project here, it's almost guaranteed it will delay, and over 57% have cost overruns. So I mean, these are facts. We are executing projects with all methods, and we have normalized the abnormal in terms of when you delay a project, it's become like a norm. Like, look, it's done everywhere, and yet a premise, even a project, even by definition itself, must have a defined time and defined budget for it to become a project. That's why I say we made it almost criminal to finish a project on time. And indeed, Chinese are executing them on time, and that's why we're also losing a lot of our projects to Chinese, because they execute them on time as required. So technology will enhance how we're going to deliver projects. There is no choice here. There's no choice here. The challenges of this century requires us to be on board with digital transformation. If we don't get on board, we risk dying digital death. Thank you.
Absolutely. Simon says something very important when he said one of the, he used the word positive impact of COVID was that, you know, the government brought down the VAT, the tax, you know, which is good to bring down or to reduce the construction cost. John, my next question is to you. What other tool, in your own opinion, can be put in place to reduce construction costs? Because I suppose that if we manage to reduce construction costs, it would also, you know, accelerate affordable housing for middle to lower income households in Kenya. Because I think this is one of the key, one of the four targets for the actual government is affordable housing. You know, like Simon mentioned, the reduction of tax, beside the reduction of tax that Simon discussed, in your own opinion, John, what other measure, in your own opinion, can be put in place to bring the construction cost down?
Okay, thank you very much. I think just to touch on, even before I move on to that one, in terms of the construction cost and what could be done to be able to reduce it, even touching on the other issue to do with why the industry is slow, and I'll also lead it back to the element of cost, is that we also need to appreciate the fact that as a construction industry, it is augmented by various parties that come together to be able to deliver a project. And as such, unless all these parties are also moving in tandem, then it becomes very difficult. And we are also, unfortunately, placed in such a position that a lot of the advancements that have been made in the industry are all manufacturer-led and not necessarily. So the manufacturers are the ones who will invest in the research and development. So you'll always find an industry that is being fed solutions by suppliers. Now, when you have an industry such as that, which is being fed solutions by suppliers, you tend to lag behind because you're at the mercy of those suppliers. So even when it comes to tech, we're not seeing, and it's because the companies that are then delivering the solutions, the architects, the engineers, the quantity surveyors, even the tools that they're using, they're not proprietary to them. These are tools that have been developed by other parties. So if resources were available, such that the firms are the ones which are developing their own products, then you then have a better leverage in terms of that harnessing of technology. But right now, we're at the mercy of the big companies, the technologies that they produce, which some of them become very prohibitive for even some of the firms to be able to utilize them, for them to be able to harness that benefit. So there still needs to be a lot of work, even in terms of how the construction industry is set up. In some of the developed countries where it has worked, we talk of the Chinese, you'll find a company is a full EPC company. It is doing the design, it is doing the construction, it is able to even do management. So when it comes to the elements of them controlling and the adoption to tech, becomes very easy because it's their own solutions of construction. They have invested in the research. They then are able to deploy it to be able to make monetary value from it in terms of the projects they're involved in. They will go to their banks and be the ones to secure funding. So that homogeneous element of almost a one-stop shop in terms of solution makes it easier for some of those places to be able to adopt that. Now, that also leads to the element of cost. So how exactly are we looking at what are our cost drivers? Cost drivers is, we can talk of materials. What can be done by the government, as they did before, was purely the element of dropping on VAT for some of the materials, but we are still an industry in Kenya where we rely a lot. For example, our finishes, majority of our finishes are all imports. So whenever there's any problem anywhere across the world where we import our finishes from, then it means automatically we'll then be affected in terms of the overall cost of delivery, which was reflected during the COVID period. So if the government, as part of its big four, we're talking about doing affordable housing, the other incentive should be them focusing on industrial, on the manufacturing sector, which is also part of the big four, and insisting on these industries being set up locally. So then we're not dependent on importation of materials. That's one. Two, mostly that can be done. We've mentioned about the elements of VAT and how they apply in. But then three is also the cost of financing when it comes to projects. So we're finding very high interest rates when it comes to the cost of project financing, which then ends up making the projects balloon. And as Simon rightfully mentioned, land is one of those key drivers. So if the cost of land is high and the developers need to be able to make a return, then eventually it might not be the cost of construction that your cost of construction ends up increasing, and then as such you pass that on to the end user. And that is why government, as it's coming within the affordable housing scheme, it's trying to give off land, and then a developer can come in, so then they can be able to offset that. But as long as it's not being done for the masses, then you'll always find that even when we talk of affordable housing, it will just remain a dream in terms of its realization. So in terms of being able to get to efficient costings, one, government can do a lot in terms of regulations around pricing of land, or streamlining the laws around land ownership and development, which is always a sensitive issue. So always has its challenges in terms of how then can government be able to police that particular sector. So there needs to be a lot of land reforms that needs to take place. Secondly, incentives that can be done for investors is in terms of tax breaks, reduced interest rates when it comes to project financing. And then thirdly, there's also elements that need to be taken into place in terms of sustainability. So we're seeing a lot of projects or developments that are being put up that are only fit for purpose for give and take about 3 to 5 years. After 5 years, we have a huge asset of real estate that is no longer functional, no longer usable, but the cost of operating some of these assets is very high. So through adoption of some of the sustainability elements, we could be able to find ourselves in a position where your capex might be high, but then your OPEX in terms of operating those particular assets are less. And we are seeing that traction coming in and around a bit more in terms of development. And Rwanda has taken a step in this, in that in their own building regulations, they have put in green building requirements, which then means that everyone has to adopt to that. And then as an industry, you start moving towards climate change, climate action, so that then you're giving your people what they deserve, and purpose-built developments, which are also looking at the cost of development, particularly from now an environmental risk perspective. And then also it's having professionals that then there's an investment in their craft. And by investment in their craft, we need to be at the top of our game when it comes to pricing. Naashan did mention about the tools that are there. So digitization will also help in terms of mitigations on cost, because some of the costs we see are not necessarily even on materials. It's cost due to project overruns. So if we're able to deliver projects within the identified or specified project timelines, then we would not see some of the overruns that we have seen, and maybe some of the overruns also in public and government projects.
Thank you very much, John. Simon, I just want to ask you a quick question concerning strengthening private ownership of property. Evidence suggests that countries who have strong private ownership of property tend to develop faster. Within the construction industry, when you speak about land, what can, in your own opinion, Kenya or a government do to strengthen private ownership of property? Do you, for example, in Kenya, have a single one-stop shop or a single register of land, so that people can have easy access? They can use it as collateral, to have easy access to credit, to banks, so that they can, build their houses or do whatever they want to do. In your own opinion, what can be done to strengthen the private ownership of property in the legal aspect?
Thank you very much for that. So I think I can start with where we are right now. And first is Kenya as a country is very high on property rights and liberties that come as far as that is concerned. Quite a bit of our land, especially the one that is available for development, is usually owned by private individuals, either on a long-term leasehold elements or on fee simple freehold arrangements. And so as far as that is concerned, we do have that liberty of property rights. The challenges that we ordinarily see comes in with the administration of land rights. And this administration has come about by having what we would call, or rather what we have as inefficient land registries. And as far as that is concerned, the government has been investing with the help of the World Bank, has been investing in the digitalization of our registries, which is a project that has been going on over the last 2 or thereabout years. We think that it's going to be completed within the next 2 or thereabout years. And I think once the digitalization process is completed, the efficiencies are going to, the efficiencies of dealing with land and administration of land in the country will also translate to production efficiencies as far as any dealings in land, construction, ownership, transfers are concerned. And that's going to reduce time. It's also going to reduce the resources required. It's also going to reduce on pricing. It's actually interesting these days. Some of the titles that are coming out from the lands registry that are already digitized, they come up with a QR code, and you can be able to simply just scan using your phone's QR code and see the registration details immediately on the spot. So, which I think is a positive direction that we are headed as a country. And I think that that is going to unlock quite a bit of investment in the real estate and the construction sector.
Thank you very much. Yes,
sorry,
please go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Yeah, just to add, an area that it's going to unlock very significantly is on financing, because quite a bit of financing is tied to securities that are tied on land, so that investors, financiers would require some of their securities noted on the land at the lands registry. So if it's going to take a month, that means that the country is not getting is not getting that facility for that delay of a month. So once that digitalization process is up and running, if it's something that can be done in a number of days, we think that that's one area that is going to unlock quite a bit of potential in the market.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nasha, do you want to add something? I suppose as the chairman of Association of Construction Manager, you have your say on what can be done besides what have already been discussed to reduce the construction cost, besides VAT, besides technological innovation,
Thank you. I've always posited that the debate on affordability, for example, of our houses, must be premised on reduction of costs. Our construction cost is quite high. It's quite high, and if you marry that or have that together with the land costs that are also quite high here, then you end up with a very high sale of houses, the price of houses being very high. I think as well the area we need to look at is taxation. And I think I've done some write-ups on this area so much. This is quite taxed. If you look at the number of taxations that are in the construction sector, sometimes they're mind-boggling. There's a lot of taxation that we need to review in this built environment so that we make it more affordable. And that's a policy issue. That's an administration policy issue of a government that be, but it's a discussion that we must have. Again, if you look at that taxation goes into manufacturing as well. Look at the manufacturers and the number of taxations that they have. We were having some discussion the other day on steel and what's happening with steel prices here locally. Yes, globally it has gone up, but also is there something more to it, like taxation, more taxation to our case? And the answer is yes. I'm not a pro subsidy in a capital economy like ours. I'm not a pro subsidy. The market needs to regulate itself, but still we can look at taxations. Again, just some issues like one-stop approval process. These things make overall construction cheaper. Those are things that we need to explore. That we have one office I work in and I can get my approvals and work out. Those are things that we have to really explore as a country so that we can make our construction cost lower. Otherwise, I will align myself with what my previous colleagues have said. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another issue that I want us to discuss is the lack of adequate skills within the sector. What can be done, to fill the gap? What can be done that is not being done at the moment, or what is being done at the moment that can be accelerated? I mean, I know even from Cameroon, where I am now, that Kenya have relatively, compared to other sub-Saharan African countries, good university system. But why is it that in the construction industry, is it that in Kenya, they don't focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM? They're producing more art graduates. Why is it that in the construction sector, we still have, people with not adequate skills to build the kind of house that Kenya will need to build that are affordable? John, do you want to step in here?
I would actually say that in terms of skill set required to be able to drive the industry, that's actually not, I wouldn't talk of it as a gap within the industry. And I think a lot of investment has been done even in terms of the sciences. And we have a situation where I would actually say we have a lot of STEM professionals, but then the availability of the spaces for them to be able to then exert those particular skills is what is lacking. So the educational system is producing the students, but then the industry is not absorbing them because the availability of those opportunities are not there. And I think to tie on to Nahashon's earlier on comment when we talked about the Chinese. So if you're going to have so many engineering graduates, architects coming out of the universities, but then you go ahead and you give foreigners the jobs, then you're already disenfranchising those that have actually gone ahead and studied those. And we're actually finding a big transition of those professionals from the built environment and into other professionals. So we're finding them moving to auditing firms, the likes of PwC, Deloitte. You'll find so many engineers, architects, but it's because then those companies are able to harness in terms of their thought process through whatever they have gained through education, of which a lot of investment, as I said, has been done. And not only just at a level of university, even within our technical institutions, TVET, where we have within every county region, we have the skills that are being done in terms of welding, plumbing, mechanical. So you also have a sector that is able to very well support that built environment. But unfortunately, minimum wage does not allow majority of them to be able to participate in those particular sectors. So they choose for alternative sectors for them to be able to feed themselves. So I also think there's a lot of policy that needs to come into play when it comes to then looking at the welfare of students or professionals within the STEM services, and not only just that now when it comes specifically to the built environment. But I'll also ask my colleagues, Simon and Nahashon, to also weigh in on the same.
John, I want to ask you another question because you mentioned something important. You mentioned about transfers of skills. I want to ask you an innocent question. Chinese that build in Africa and Kenya, do they transfer skills? Are there, when with Kenyan engineering population? That's also one way to fill, to make sure that Kenyan have the necessary skills to take construction to the next level. Are there being transfers of skills?
It is there, but I'd say not to the level to which it would be expected. But then I don't think we will grow as an economy, as a country, and even as Africa. I don't think we'll grow by having professionals from other countries coming to do what people here can already do. It is a road, it can already be done. If it's buildings, they can already be done by the professionals here. And I don't think that is how we will grow the industry. How to grow the industry is we need to invest in our own people, invest in the technology here, and that is the only way we'll be able to do it. So even in perpetuity, the current model of development is disenfranchising your day-to-day professional in this particular sector. So it needs to, the model is what needs to change. And the professionals are there, they are capable of doing it, but the opportunity needs to be given to them first. And even if it's entrenched in some of the contracts, the follow through in terms of transfer of skills is very negligible. And in most instances, it barely even happens.
Okay, thank you very much. We have one question from one of our participants, Jindal, yeah, I think. He asking for any of you guys if there are common practice or success story worldwide that you identify and think that can be implemented in Kenya. Anyone?
Just repeat that. I think I didn't get on Ashok, if you've gotten it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I've got a gist of what he's trying to say. One of the biggest challenges of global South countries like ours has been management of projects. And I totally agree with John. We have skills. I mean, you can get brilliant architectural designs here, brilliant engineering designs, and if you can't get them, there are so many foreign companies as well. So on that front, we are not short. But if you look at the built environments that are ahead of us, the democracies that are ahead of us in terms of development, they have added additional stamina into the built environment by professionalizing how it's managed. And when the question comes about what we can borrow from other practices from other jurisdictions that are good, it is on management of projects. That's where we are suffering. The one-time cost and time overruns point clearly to projects are not being properly executed. Government have allocated the budget is there, all right? The resources are there, but the management is a problem. So it's something that we have to do. Proper management of projects is no longer a luxury for countries. It's a necessity. It's at the threshold of any successful country. The projects have to deliver, be it a dispensary, that's supposed to take 6 months. It needs to take 6 months and start contributing to the economy. When a bridge delays by a year, it's affecting the economy. So management of projects is one of those practices that we must begin to professionalize how we manage projects, regulate them. For example, I think in this continent, it's only South Africa. It's only South Africa that has regulated project and construction management. That is 22 years ago. No other country has done it in this continent. We are attempting to do it now. Hopefully we will. But you realize it's a challenge for global South countries. And you can see the difference. You go to Joburg, for example, and see how they manage projects and what we do locally. So that's an area that we can borrow from and properly implement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Simon, you wanted to say something on that question?
Yes, I want, probably from where I sit on the legal side, in construction lawyering, I think I would just add to what my colleagues have mentioned. And we have seen over the last 20 or thereabout years, the adoption of international best practice construction contract documents that are helpful in project management, that are helpful in allocation of risks. Say, for instance, the FIDIC suite of contracts is a very common set of contracts that are used in this region in the sub-Saharan Africa. We also have the NEC kind of contracts, especially for power projects. And then we also have our own homegrown standard form contracts that have been developed within the continent in our respective countries that appreciate some of the nuances that are local, some of the local nuances that we have in our industry. So just adopting that international best practice in construction contracting is one of the things that has over the last 20 or so years been adopted by the industry. And there is a continued adoption in that sector. I think also, generally speaking, I would associate myself with the sentiments that have been made by my two colleagues, especially John, when he said, I don't think that there is a skills gap. I think that as a country, we are producing graduates, we are producing people that have the knowledge to be able to take up the construction-related services and work. What seems to be a challenge is the economy or the market for which the workers, the professionals find themselves. I think, and I've and maybe just looking at some of the things that have some other developing countries in the past, saying the 1980s China, 1980s India, where they were coming up with a lot of engineering or STEM-related graduates who may not have been, the market may not have been ready for that production, but then growth, when the countries took off for growth, they found a ready professionals, they found a ready market, or rather they found ready professionals that were able to service the market. So I think on a macro level, what we are doing, whereas it may be disenfranchising to me as an individual engineer in this economy, it may be a very positive thing. You say 5-10 years down the line, our economy has taken off and the services that I have would be needed. I think on a positive note is to say that the Kenyan economy, which mirrors what has happened with the other African economies, is that the Kenyan economy has grown almost 10 times over the last 20 years. And we have seen a lot of household, we have seen a lot of people that transition from low income to middle income level, and households transitioning from low income to middle income households within a generation. So within 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, we have seen so many people transition from that, from one level to another, which I think is a very positive narrative for us who are in this continent, because what we are seeing is that we are seeing a continent being built from the ground up. And there's a lot of opportunities that such kind of growth, an economy that has grown 10 times, and the projections over the next 10 years also show an indication of much further accelerated growth. So if by 2030 we still maintain the growth that we have had over the last 10, 20 years, then I think we will have much more opportunities for the industry. We will have much more opportunities for all players, be they developers, employers, professionals, or even up to and including end users, in this case being buyers. So I think there's just a positive note, which I think I'm seeing in our country, and it's mirrored by very many other African countries.
Thank you very much, Simon, for your insight. Thank you also, John, for your insight on the skill gap issue. My key takeaway is that Kenya is producing enough graduates in STEM, especially in civil engineering, that they just need to be used, to put in practice what they have learned. I can't end this webinar without asking a very important question to you guys, because I think it's also an important question, especially when you look at what the Kenyan government want to achieve when it comes to affordable housing. It's access to heavy machinery for large-scale construction. I know that it's hard, especially because most of them is imported. My question, especially to Nashon, is what can be done? Should this heavy machinery be produced locally? What can be done? Because without it, it's hard, really, to scale up production, to scale up construction. Especially if you want to build 10,000 affordable houses, for example, within a year. We need those heavy machinery. I want the view of all of you on that. Simon, Nashon, can I start with you?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. Look, affordable housing in Africa is still a big debate that is in the public courts. And if you look at Ethiopia, if you look at Angola, and Angola mirrors our more or less our arrival at affordable housing. These were political things, but Ethiopia has been building, I think, one of the largest social housing in a developing country in the world right now since 2006. And there are very imperative lessons that we'll have picked from, for example, Ethiopia. For me, from where I look at it from, first of all, it's my view that it's not the business government to get involved in building housing. They give us the policy, and then we will execute the building of houses. If the cost of construction can be looked at, and we are talking about technology, but sometimes technology can arrive here and it's still expensive. And that has been a challenge to us. It's been a challenge to us because and understand challenge that still, for example, in doing walling, there's still nothing cheaper than our brick and mortar here. There's nothing cheaper than it. And sometimes when you have this other technology for walling, and they tell you, oh, we'll save you 3 months, but no one wants to give you an attacking on it, because I'm paying 3-4 times more than all I paid for my stone walling. You don't want to give me a guarantee on you'll save me 3 months, my finance cost. I mean, I won't stick to it. So those are the challenges that are happening. That even the technology itself, the machinery itself, come here and still more expensive. But I don't think the solution is having a manufacturing company here that does machinery. That is, for me, that's not the challenge. There are countries out there that do not have these companies within their jurisdictions, but they're building affordable housing. So the issue is not that. The issue is can I import that equipment from China, from Vietnam, and bring it here at an affordable price? That is the critical thing. Can I eliminate the hindrances that will make this machine expensive when you drive here, including technology? Technologies are good, but you'll have to sometimes have it here. But if you have the electricity costs, the fuel costs, the taxations, if those still remains the same, whether you put it here or put it elsewhere, it will still be expensive. So if you're going to realize affordable housing, for me, it's a policy thing. It has to be a deliberate government policy thing to, first of all, lower construction cost, lower it, the cost of materials, lower it, so that it can become affordable in the first instance. Then we can come back to talk about machinery and technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Nashon. John, your view on how can we ease access to heavy machinery for large-scale construction?
I'm in agreement with Nashon's sentiments, and also just to add on the same, I don't really think it's an issue, and primarily because, again, the finance industry within Kenya has been quite adoptive, and what we've seen happening a lot in the previous, over the past years, has been a lot of finance products being offered by the local banks. There's a lot of leasing that is also happening. So majority of all the equipment manufacturers that you think of that provide quality equipment that is relevant for the built environment, I can tell you confidently that majority of them already have, if not dealers, they have a direct office rep in Nairobi, and that's where they operate from, and they are able to service the entire region. And with the partnerships that they have then established with the industry players, and you find that equipment is not necessarily a challenge, and I don't think that would be any hindrance to the current growth or realization of the affordable housing. So as Nahashan mentioned, the problem squarely lies in an entity that should not be undertaking delivery of projects in terms of the responsibility of construction, taking up that role, which is government. That role should be transferred to the professionals who are able then to run with it, and for government to play its role in terms of policies, incentives that can then be given to then realize it. So they are realizing it. It will be at a very slow pace if the model remains the same, and might not realize the full vision that they currently have in place. But it's not too late. There's still opportunities to be able to reverse it. There are some private sector players who have gone ahead and taken the responsibility to play in that space. However, due to the elements of commercials that then come in when private sector is involved, it might not reach the person that it's intended to. So we might end up not achieving the vision and the goal that we want to undertake with affordable housing. And then likewise, remember, we have an overall responsibility as well in terms of the sustainable development goals when it comes to decent housing that we want to be able to provide, clean water, clean energy that we want to be able to do. And then over and above that, development of human dignity. So there's an overarching role and responsibility that not only targeting affordable housing gives, but then we're also able to tick on some of the boxes in and around the sustainable development goals, even as we then look at now COP in Egypt this year, so that then we're able to see what are the gains we can be able to make from whatever was discussed in COP26, and also the Africa agenda. How then do we see ourselves realizing it? So I think it goes also beyond the region as Kenya.
Thank you very much, John. Nashon mentioned something earlier on that touched me, and that touches me, and I think that he's right when he mentioned the role of the private sector. He was keen to emphasize that the private sector should play the key role, should be at the center. If I'm not mistaken, I should that what you mean, that to make a success of building affordable housing, you know, or construction sector, the private sector should be at the center. My question to Simon is, what can be done to put the private sector at the center, to make things easier for the entrepreneur, for the Kenyan entrepreneur who want to venture in the construction sector? What can be done to make things easier for them? That is not being done.
Okay, thank you very much. Allow me to, in answering that question, try to also answer the previous question, and maybe start with where the government is as far as the affordable housing goals is concerned. On or around 2017, the current government administration put, or rather set a goal of 500,000 houses by the end of this year. 500,000 affordable housing units by the end of this year. So that has not been achieved very significantly, even though there are thousands of affordable houses that have been delivered. They are nowhere near what was projected. My view as far as that is concerned is that the government started with a political objective without putting the social infrastructure in place. So what we have seen over the last 5 or so years is that the government has been putting up the necessary social infrastructure, that is the incentives, the tax incentives that we've spoken about, trying to incentivize supply side, demand side consumption of affordable housing units over the last 5 or thereabout years. We think that maybe if this trajectory goes on over the next 5 or thereabout years, because the current administration term comes to an end on August this year, we think that there's going to be much more involvement of the private sector. So some of the challenges that the private sector currently encounters in this market is, one, we've already spoken about them. The cost of construction is very high. The cost of financing is high. The cost of mortgages is also high. So which has acted as a disincentive for expeditious or fast adoption by the private sector of and delivery of these houses. So whereas the private sector is delivering and has been delivering houses and affordable houses to that end, it is not to the rate that the demand requires, because it's usually stated that we have a housing demand, a decent housing demand of around 2 million people. So as far as that is concerned, I think the social infrastructure that the government has been putting in place and will be putting in place is going to go a long way in incentivizing the private sector to come in and deliver these kind of houses. If the private sector were to be left to organically grow, I think that may have their delivery of the housing needs may have taken a little bit longer. But it's positive, some of the things that have gone on over the last 5 or thereabout years. We have seen in the market, or rather, we as Boomans have been, as a law firm, we have been involved in projects where we have some private sector players who want to come in and build 17,000 affordable housing units over a period of 5 to 7 years, which I think is very positive and something that has not been seen previously in this market. That level of housing has only been done at a much reduced level by the government. We have also seen instances also in areas that we have been involved in the transactions that we have been involved in, areas where the government working together with the private sector on a PPP kind of arrangement or such kind of partnerships, where you have a project of more than 100,000 affordable housing projected to come in over the next 7 to 10 years, which I think is a very positive thing. And and just to finalize, just to buttress the fact, something that I said previously, it is expected that our economy is going to grow, is going to continue with its current growth trajectory, and household incomes are going to grow. That means that the demand of housing, affordable and decent housing, is going to increase, which I think is an opportunity for international developers, international contractors, international suppliers, local contractors, developers, and suppliers within the housing and the construction sector.
Absolutely. And also international financer, you know,
Yes.
to come in their opportunity indeed. Nation, since you are the one who mentioned that, I also want to know your opinion on this. What can be done to put the private sector at the center, the Kenyan entrepreneur at the center of the construction sector?
I think it's policy incentives. I mean, let's make it attractive for the private sector to get involved into construction. I mean, issues like, I said it, one-stop approval. Sometimes the protracted nature of our approval system, the hindrance to an investor to get involved. Let's make it sweet. Let's make it attractive. Once the policy is in place that makes it attractive, including the return on investment, the private sector will get involved. But if we demonize it and it's not looking attractive for any investor, it will not work for us. And yet, the truth is, countries like ours have limited resources. Governments have limited resources, and to put on the shoulder of the governments to provide affordable housing, they will not do it. They are the priorities items like education.
Hello, I'm not sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I was saying, if you make it attractive for the private sector, they will get involved. Governments have limited resources. Their finance is limited. So if you put on the shoulder of the government to fully provide housing, they will fall short. So make it attractive for people out there that have their X amount of money. Give the policy, give the incentives for the private sector to get involved, and we will achieve affordable housing.
Thank you very much, Nashon. My last question will be for you, John. You mentioned earlier on that, you know, as far as transfer of skills is concerned, for example, not only limited, but for Chinese companies in Kenya, they are transfer skills, but not at the level that maybe the economy will have wanted. And my question to you now is, what can be done to bring that transfer of skills to that level? Is it a legal thing, or the legal aspect is there, the law are there, but it's just not implemented?
So I think first and foremost, yes, it does. It has to start from the legal. It has to start from the legal point of view, because it depends on how then the contracts are also structured. And I think as Nahashon and also as Simon pointed out earlier, is when we talk about the advancements in terms of contracts that are there, from FIDIC to all this, there's also elements of domestication or localization in terms of the needs of the economy. So then it has to be enforced, monitored, and penalties applied where then that is not being done in accordance with the law. Secondly, we've also had a lot of government bodies also get involved on the same. So there's efforts being done. It is the element of monitoring that is not being done to the letter. And as such, then within those loopholes, then the various developers or the various contractors then are able to get away with not doing as is required. So we just need to be able to enforce contracts as required. And then we would not even, over and above the element of skills transfer, we would also not have the challenges of scope creeps in terms of time, or even in terms of budget on some of the projects. So it has to start with how the contracts are drafted. And again, it's involvement of professionals. So the likes of Simon, the likes of Nahashon, firms such as ourselves in terms of Turner & Townsend, because having been in the industry, then we know the gaps that are there. So we're able to provide a role. But also, I think it's also as professionals in the construction industry to accept that we're also limited in terms of our knowledge or our influence that we might have on some of the social things. So when it comes to elements of employment, we may not be the best place to offer advice. So it may mean that we need to engage with other bodies. So be they human resource bodies within Kenya, HR bodies within Kenya. So then let them give that professional and legal advice that then can go towards and be implemented in the contracts or integrated into the contracts, so that then we have them getting the value. Maybe it's involving policy makers that are beyond the built environment, so that then that element of adaptation is then monitored and can then be implemented for it to yield the results that we want. But I don't think it's enough to just transfer the skills. There also has to be, after the transfer of the skills, what next? So what investment is being made into those that the skills have been transferred into? So it has to be the service or the intent has to be full circle. It has to be holistic. So yes, you have transferred the skills, but then where do you take the individuals that you have transferred the skills to? Are they the ones that then qualify for the jobs that are then available? Are you going ahead to certify them in such a way such that they can use whatever skills that they have gained within that to go and seek employment elsewhere? There are current conversations in terms of government being able to offer professional certificates based on skills that have been transferred. So meaning that if you're, for example, a welder and you've gotten certain additional skills that are not what is your mainstream welding skills, then you can actually use that, which means you can, one, charge more for your services, two, it's a specialized skill, so meaning you're advancing in terms of your career. So some of those elements would go towards enhancing and making it more, give the element of skills transfer more value for those that are actually getting that transfer of skills.
Thank you very much, John. We came to the end of this webinar. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Nashon. Thank you once again, John, for your time. I think it was quite insightful. I hope all our participants enjoy it. Thank you so much again. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.